All right, so welcome to the OneDrive tutorial. So right here in front of me, I have my web version of OneDrive, and I usually access that from a bookmark I have, but sometimes if I'm not on, say, my own computer, I'll often go to the college website, and then down at the very bottom, there's a quick link to Outlook. So if I'm off campus somewhere else and I just don't have a computer and I need to check my email, I'm going to go to the college website, I'm going to go to Outlook. And the reason I'm pointing this out is our Outlook email is connected to a ton of Microsoft applications. OneDrive is one of them. And so if you've ever accessed your Outlook email from a web browser, you can also access OneDrive in a couple of ways. So in the upper left of the web version of Outlook, there's this 9-dot button, which is the app launcher. And in there are things like the online versions of Word and Excel and PowerPoint, but you also have your OneDrive right there and SharePoint if you're connected to any SharePoint stuff. I'll explain the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive in a little bit. Teams is also there for those of you who like Teams. Additionally, there's this column of stuff here, and there's a little cloud there near the bottom that's also access to OneDrive. So generally, if I'm not on my computer and I need email or calendar or OneDrive, I'm going to start off with that way I got to my Outlook, which is again was from the college homepage. And there's a OneDrive or Outlook button there. Some of you may be used to going to maybe faculty and staff. And at the top of faculty and staff is your staff email there. Same link. All right, so what is OneDrive? So OneDrive is online storage for files. That's all it is. You can put any kind of files you want in there, images, Word docs, PDFs, you name it. You can store stuff in there. When you first go to OneDrive, you're on your home page for OneDrive, and the home page is going to show kind of like your file explorer on your computer. It's going to show some stuff you go to recently, like My Files. Shared is probably a little bit different because we don't generally share things from our desktop. And then there's a quick access stuff. And again, I use OneDrive a lot for committees and other groups, my department. So I have a bunch of stuff there. Morning, Greg. But often I'm going to go to My Files. And then this is kind of like an online version of my documents on my computer, but it's not. Okay, so I have files there, files that say Word I used to keep in my documents. I don't anymore. They now live here. Okay, so it's pretty rare I do anything with my documents on the computer. Now, with that in mind, I need to show you a little graphic. From the staff page, there is a frequently asked questions page you may have seen before, and I added a few links to the frequently asked questions. Up at the top, I have a what is OneDrive and how do I use it? What is SharePoint and how do I use it? How do I use OneDrive how do I share a OneDrive or SharePoint file? We're going to go over these three things today. So I'm going to check out the what is OneDrive, and it's going to come down to this graphic right here. So the green thing is me at my computer here. And it used to be that the iDrive is when you go to My Documents on your computer, you're not on your computer. That isn't on the box next to you. Those files live in another computer that IT manages, which probably lives in Pioneer Hall. Okay, and your files just appear to be on your computer, but they're not really. Okay, so I have this kind of one-way arrow going there. It's not really a two-way thing. The files don't live both on your computer and on the iDrive with My Documents. They just live there. And IT makes this cute little connection that makes it feel like they're on your computer. Same thing with F drive stuff. So stuff you might do on the F drive for your department or a committee, those things don't live on your computer. They're accessed through the network. So if the network somehow breaks, like if you unplug your computer from the network connection, you will lose My Documents and you will lose your F drive connection to files until it's back up. So OneDrive and SharePoint are like that, but they don't live on campus. They live in some storage facility, who knows where in the world, maybe in Boardman. So OneDrive is like your My Documents, but instead of IT managing that computer in, say, Pioneer Hall, Microsoft manages it somewhere else in the universe. Same thing with SharePoint, but SharePoint is like the F drive. So again, OneDrive is your personal storage connected to, like for me, it's connected to gparker@bluecc.edu. That account has OneDrive storage. SharePoint is for things like I help out with the Office of Instruction. I help out with the Curriculum Committee. I help out with Tech Hub. So those are all SharePoint things. They don't belong to me personally, although I have access to those files. And so instead of getting those files for the Curriculum Committee or the Office of Instruction from the F drive, I now get them from SharePoint instead. And all committees and departments are eventually going to have to switch to SharePoint because IT is phasing out these local storage devices here that we've been relying on before. It's not going to happen immediately. We got time to get used to it. But in the near future, we'll be using SharePoint for committee and department stuff, OneDrive for your personal storage for whatever your day-to-day tasks are that aren't necessarily shared with everybody. Notice there are no arrows connecting the iDrive My Documents and the F Drive committees departments to SharePoint and OneDrive. We, users of the system, do not have the ability to connect those. Now, IT may be able to do that in some way, but they do not plan to do that. Okay, we're going to stop relying on these local storage devices that they have to maintain. So this is important. If you think you've synced your My Documents to iDrive, to OneDrive, it's not true. It does not happen that way. And I've worked with a few people that had that problem. Say, I sync my files, but they're not there. And I go and meet with them and I find out they were still working with the iDrive My Document stuff, not with the stuff they uploaded to OneDrive. And that takes a little getting used to. Questions yet?
So somebody was asking about using this with the desktop version, which I said.
Yes, I'm going to get to that next. Yeah, I'm working my way up to that. But I just want to kind of get a handle of what OneDrive and SharePoint are and how they relate to stuff we've used. Like,
so are we responsible for moving things from that drive to SharePoint, or is that going to be migrated?
The migration of F drive to SharePoint is going to be the responsibility of whatever group or person owns that stuff. So the Curriculum Committee is going to be responsible for getting curriculum stuff there. Greg?
F drive would more likely be a mapping to OneDrive. SharePoint.
F drive is the committees and departments. That's going to go to SharePoint.
I thought the F drive.
Oh, sorry, I confuse those letters all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
F drive is My Documents, essentially.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Which
So-
corresponds to OneDrive.
Which corresponds to OneDrive. Yeah. So if you're talking about your files that are on My Documents, you're responsible for putting whatever you want in OneDrive. And I'll show what I did in mine in just a minute. Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood your question.
We can also, any of us from the Tech Hub can help with the migration of files too. So if you're nervous about doing it alone, just let us know.
Okay, other questions?
I'll just make an appointment.
Okay, yeah, and so me, Greg, and Ashley, and I'll put our emails in the chat for those of you who are online. We're here to help people make this adjustment. So if you want to set up a meeting with us, we'll come to your office and help you migrate stuff as you need to. Yes.
Is that a one-time sync? So you sync it once?
No, you can sync stuff whenever you want, and then I'll get to have more in a minute how the sync works. All right, so I'm just going to go take a look at my OneDrive again here. So at the moment, I'm at my OneDrive, and again, when I first get to my OneDrive, I'm on my home page, and my home page is showing me my recent. Notice the recent header at the top, recent files that I've played around with. If I switch to my files, then it's kind of like being on My Documents on my computer, but they're on the web and I can access them anywhere. Now, there is a desktop app called the OneDrive app that is used to make it seem like these online files are actually on your computer. Right, so I'm going to open up my File Explorer here. So here's my File Explorer. Let's minimize this window here for a moment. And you can see in my File Explorer, I have a section called OneDrive Blue Mountain Community College. So I use the OneDrive app to sync to my desktop those online files. And so now these files here appear. So let's pick on something like academic calendars. So I have these academic calendars here. and I can choose one to open up. And if I use my file explorer to open these synced files, then I can edit them just like they were in my documents, like they live on my computer. I'm using the Excel desktop app. Let's see, I don't want to worry about that right now. Let's close that for a sec. On the web, so here's my web version of that stuff. So if I go again into academic calendars, same academic calendars I was just looking at, when I open them here, it opens up the Office 365 version of Excel. Now, personally, I like the Office 365 versions of Excel and Word better than the desktop ones, but I know lots of other people prefer the desktop ones because they're more used to them. They're not exactly the same configuration. So you can go either way once you have those files synced. All right. Greg?
I was gonna say, there really is no difference. I mean, OneDrive, the way that OneDrive works and the way that, say, My Documents works now with the F drive is, you can think of it as exactly the same. If you save something to your computer in your OneDrive folder, that's just automatically synced. It all happens in the background. You don't even have to think about it. So it's really just like My Documents, except that it's syncing to OneDrive instead of the local network folder. And the benefit is you can access it from anywhere. You don't have to be on the VPN or on the campus network to access your file.
Yeah, so again, on the right here is my File Explorer local, and it's showing me these same folders, approved logos, academic calendars, admin that you see here in the online version right there. To make that sync happen, we have to use the OneDrive app. Okay, if you've not used it before, now I have, so I can't show you on this computer, but I got a video. There's on the tutorial page in the frequently asked questions, there's a video here syncing files. And they have a cute little video here. And I'm just gonna let a little of this play. What's up?
One other question. Is it possible, Link was just showing that his My Documents folder actually, and it is already in his OneDrive folder. Is it possible that?
So when you, well, is there actually stuff in it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if, because there is a thing, and you may have done this without knowing it. OneDrive is very persistent on your computer, and it will say, have you set up OneDrive? You should set up OneDrive. And I think if you click yes to that, one of the options is, do you want to put My Documents in OneDrive?
Yeah, so it already did it for you.
So some people may have already been.
Yeah, you may already be synced.
That's probably.
No,
Right? It could have been, yeah. I don't mind.
yeah, so when you first access the OneDrive app, it's gonna ask you to sign in. And when you sign in, it's gonna set up the syncing for you. So it could be you, and some recent upgrade that Tech Services did, the OneDrive app said, hey, here I am. Sign in, please.
I think Veldo shared some stuff a long time ago. They wanted it on OneDrive or something, maybe that's.
Okay. Now here's an important thing about that. So again, and it'll just, the setup's super easy. You just pretty much enter your email address. It might ask for your password if you're not already authenticated, and then it just pretty much sets up the sync. And so what'll happen next is that you will then in your, and then the OneDrive app will appear to go away. And what'll come up is your File Explorer, and in your File Explorer will be this new section called OneDrive Blue Mountain Community College. So if I close this right now and I go to the search bar and I type OneDrive, it's not going to bring me that initiation screen. What's going to happen is if I select that, it's just going to pop up my File Explorer. Oh, weird. I'm lying. I'm already synced. Why is it asking? Anyway, that's weird. On my desktop, what happens when I open that is it just opens my File Explorer with this highlighted and doesn't ask me to sync again. So maybe I haven't used this computer in a while and it's asking me to resync. But this is important. So if you did accidentally or on purpose some time ago and forgot, take your documents and sync it with OneDrive. They are now two independent things, right? Take a look at My Documents on the right here. That is not the same stuff that's in my OneDrive here. Notice different set of folders, there's only a few folders there. So this is stuff like I accidentally put in there over the last year, I guess. I don't ever touch this stuff, and I delete stuff in there regularly if it happens to get there. Or I just move it over into here. When you do move stuff, say like from my documents into something over here, like maybe I need that statistics file, I accidentally put it there, then I can just drag it over into whatever folder I want it to live in, and it just copies it there. So now there's two versions of that file. There's the documents one and the OneDrive one. And again, something to pay attention to for the moment, these are two different places, my documents here versus OneDrive here.
Yeah, and if you
Computers will not have the OneDrive.
Okay, so just,
Just do it on your desktop. So generally, you only want to install the OneDrive connector
Yeah.
on your desktop work computer. If you have like a work laptop,
Yeah.
that can be a good place.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it on your home computer. You probably wouldn't want to do it on your home computer because otherwise that would be syncing to your work account. So most likely, the only time you're installing that is on your desk computer. If you need to access those files outside of work, you can do it through the OneDrive web app.
okay.
Yeah. So once I've moved anything I want from my mouse, from my documents into my OneDrive, then I'm not going to access things anymore from documents. Anything I need, I'm just going to go over the OneDrive folder here, and then I'm going to grab it there and work on it.
And if you're accessing something and realizing that you've done more work that you're not seeing, you're probably accessing it in the wrong location. And you need to go and make sure that you're accessing it via the OneDrive app.
You can just move it, just drag and drop it.
Yeah, just drag it
It's a
over.
regular folder on your computer.
So then should we delete it out of documents once we do that?
That's what I would recommend. Yeah. So I took everything I wanted out of documents, and then stuff just kind of accidentally got there over the year. Like Zoom defaults to that location right there. In terms of my Zoom recordings from my classes, and I'm just going to delete that stuff at the end of the quarter. Let's see. Yeah.
If we move our documents into OneDrive that are currently in My Documents, does that mean if our campus network goes down, we can still access our folders because they are online?
Yes.
Yeah.
You would have to use like your cell phone or like,
Yeah. As long as you have internet access on your computer, you can access your OneDrive files.
yeah,
That's all you need, internet access.
yeah.
Now, I have, so I'm on a classroom computer right now. I did use the OneDrive Sync app here. That was mostly just for demonstration purposes to show that it was there, but I teach out of this room too. Do I have to have those files synced there? Not really, because I can always access them through the web browser anywhere. So for you teachers out there, you don't have to sync to the classroom unless you want to. Why would you want to? Well, the only reason I can think that you would want to is if you prefer to use in the classroom the desktop version of Word or the desktop version of Excel. Otherwise, there's really, in my opinion, no reason to sync those files on another computer.
I think
Now-
you can still open them on the desktop apps, though. They just won't be syncing back to,
Well, I think you would have to download it
yeah.
to use it on the
right.
desktop. You can't use it from the web.
It won't be the live version.
Right, it won't be the live version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the online email.
Yeah, so like, for example, Link asked a question I just heard. I don't use the desktop version of Outlook. I don't use the desktop version of Word. Everything I use is in my web browser. I access email that way. I do Word documents that way, Excel. I manage all my files there. I do not use the Sync app.
Why is that, Gary?
Because I don't care to use the desktop versions.
Well, I was gonna say, the reason that because I do exactly the same thing. And the reason is that, like, my email, the way that I have all of my views and everything set up is then consistent on any computer I log in. Anytime I go to check my email, whether it's home or my work or this office or this computer, it's exactly the same. I don't have to reconfigure anything. And it's the same in those, web app versions of Word.
Yeah, so if you're online and you didn't hear Greg, he likes the uniform appearance of all of those apps on any computer he goes to.
The
From the
new Outlook
Office
app,
365.
the one that's sort of in beta right now, does sort of sync all of your settings and things, but that's only if you've got that latest version that's waiting.
And if you install that desktop
Yeah.
app on all your.
You have to have it on all of your things. So the easier way to just have everything be the same is to work in the web app.
Yeah, so I think, OneDrive, I think is pretty straightforward. Again, it's online cloud storage. It is not directly connected to your My Documents that appear to be on your computer. Those live somewhere else, and you cannot directly get OneDrive and My Documents to sync. It doesn't work that way. The way it does work, again, is you have your File Explorer on your computer, and that will have a new section if you did the sync. That shows your OneDrive BMCC and everything you decided to put there. So again, a year ago, when I finally decided, okay, I'm done with My Documents, I'm going to use OneDrive, I just selectively grabbed a bunch of stuff that I wanted. Stuff I was unsure of, I made a folder called Old. And if I don't look at that stuff within a year, my plan is to delete Old. And then everything else that I left behind in My Documents, I deleted. And there's a bunch of stuff here. I'm at the end of the quarter that accidentally got there. I'm just going to delete that at the end of the quarter because I don't need it. If I decide I might want some of my Zoom videos, I could put that whole folder in OneDrive. It would make a copy of it. But some of you use Kaltura for your Zoom storage. I use YouTube. So if I haven't already put it in YouTube, then I don't really care about it anymore, and it's just going to go away.
Do we currently have a limit on storage in OneDrive?
Terabyte? Is anyone, somebody from IT was supposed to come support? Anyone from IT there? I believe it's a terabyte of storage we have in OneDrive. Does that sound, do you remember, Greg?
I
We
don't,
talked about it in the IT committee. It's a lot. You're not going to overuse it. What was a storage in My Documents, like 10 gigs maybe? Which some of you may have gotten messages in the past. You've used your quota. I used to get that all the time. I don't get it anymore.
So is that My Documents eventually gonna disappear from our folders?
I believe so. Yeah. And again, it's not going to happen this year. It's probably not going to happen next year, but it's going to happen soon. All right. So next I want to move over to SharePoint, talk a little about SharePoint, and then I'll talk about file sharing. So from OneDrive, I'm actually seeing some of my SharePoint stuff. Now notice the blue bar here says OneDrive, but if you look at the web address above, it says SharePoint. Okay, so that may be a little confusing. Those two products were separate and now they're interbred, but they are slightly different and they behave a little bit different. So the way to think about SharePoint, let's go to say academics. It still says I'm in OneDrive. And so again, OneDrive is the document storage for SharePoint. So this is the curriculum committee SharePoint stuff. And again, it looks a lot like My Files did, but instead of saying My Files here, it says academics, indicating I'm not in My Files, right? So academics right there, My Files right here. If I go to my Files folder, I'm in My Files admin. If I switch over to one of my other groups here, now I'm in academics, documents. I'm going to switch from OneDrive here to SharePoint. And some of you may not have any SharePoint connections yet, depending on what groups you're part of. Question?
so Link was just asking, he's in his email.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit confusing how to get from the different apps. So if you.
Okay, so if I go back to my email.
Well, yeah, go to your email, click the little grid. Okay, so there, Link, look up there.
Yeah, the grid in the upper left gives me all my Microsoft apps.
And you should, OneDrive and SharePoint will be in there. See that?
Yeah, and for those of you who may have came late,
OneDrive.
the primary way I access my online email, SharePoint, OneDrive is if I'm not on my computer, I'm probably going to go to the BMCC homepage, and there's a quick link at the bottom here to my Outlook. And if I didn't want Outlook, then I'm either going to switch to my calendar or OneDrive or SharePoint or whatever I need. I don't use the desktop apps anymore at any computer. This is what I do. And so maybe I want my calendar, or if I want OneDrive, I'm going to go to OneDrive here, but right now I want to be in SharePoint. All right, and I got too many screens going here. Let's close a few. Boom, boom, boom. All right, now I'm at SharePoint. So if you see in the blue bar at the top, it says SharePoint, not OneDrive. I'm going to go to the academic section here, which I have in my following and recent. Now notice this home page looks very different than the documents page I was at just a minute ago in OneDrive. So the way to think about SharePoint, SharePoint is kind of like, you remember MySpace? Anybody? It's like Microsoft's MySpace, but the business version. So it's this home page that is editable. So whoever has edit access to the SharePoint account can do all kinds of things here. And if you want to learn more about editing a SharePoint homepage, when you first get, if you're going to be in charge of a SharePoint, you will see a bunch of videos like these at the top, or boxes that will have videos that say, okay, this is how to do this on the homepage. This is how to do that on the homepage. I'm not going to go over editing a SharePoint homepage. That's something else.
Okay, important question though.
Yeah.
If it's like MySpace, can you embed a playlist?
You can have to, well, I bet you could. Yeah, because you can put lists of all kinds of stuff here. And I know Riley has done a lot with these. You have your homepage up there. And so you can have to-do lists, you can have calendars, you can put all kinds of apps on here. It's pretty versatile.
The key is that SharePoint is for collaborating.
Yeah, SharePoint is a collaboration tool. So there is no SharePoint for G. Parker at Blue CC. That is a OneDrive thing. I happen to have SharePoint stuff because I'm part of academics, because I'm part of curriculum, because I'm part of the tech hub. Okay.
But
So-
each group has a list of members. If you,
Yeah.
so on this homepage, there's a variety of ways to get to it. There you go. It should be in the upper right.
Here, I can't quite see.
No, for the academic, well, this is a slightly different view. So, like,
Yeah, so here,
and it'll tell you like this, I'm in a group here that has 5 members. You can click the list and see who's.
yeah, so here there's a share in the upper right. I can see the site members are people related to the Office of Instruction: Ashley, Cynthia, Kristen, Riley, Tammy, there's more somewhere. Site owners. I'm an owner right now just because I'm helping the Office of Instruction get going of this, but pretty soon I'm going to get removed from there because I shouldn't have ownership of that there. But you can see Stacy, Philip, and Carl are full owners of this SharePoint, and so they can manage and do anything they want with it.
So somebody asked, will we still have continued access to the iDrive?
Yes, you will still have continued access to the iDrive. The iDrive is not going away immediately. It's probably going to be around for a couple of more years, but here's the reason SharePoint is important now. On our current website, we have a ton of documents that people access publicly through the website, mostly PDF type stuff. Those will no longer be hosted on the website. Okay, where they will live is in SharePoint, and then from SharePoint, we'll make them publicly accessible. For example, if we go to my documents for academics, which I was looking at a little bit ago, there is a catalogs section. And this catalog section has PDFs of all the past catalogs. Now, currently on the website, there are other copies of these that live in our Granicus website. So they're not going to live in there anymore. Once we make the switch to the new site, they're going to be linked from here. Nobody will know the difference once they're out there.
And the huge benefit that this has to everyone on campus is that we don't have to duplicate. You don't have to put a file in the OneDrive and then have someone or in the iDrive, and then have someone responsible for posting that to the website. If the whole team is using this SharePoint to manage these files, then that's it. They're managed in one place, and you can link to them from the website without any duplication.
Yeah. So right now, for example, the catalog is kind of a mess. There's a catalog system we use called Acalog. That's a web version. Somebody has to make a PDF of that web version. That PDF ends up in the iDrive. Then that file from the iDrive gets put into the website. So now there's 3 different versions of the calendar floating around. If someone says, hey, there's something that needs to be changed in the one on the website, that means we have to go back to Acalog, edit it, put it in the iDrive. From the iDrive, we need to upload it into so no more of that. The file just lives in the iDrive. It is edited and updated there. and then links to it just appear, or sorry, in SharePoint, and then links to those are just put on the website. Okay, it doesn't have to be a PDF either. It could be a Word doc that lives here. That Word doc is then linked on the website from SharePoint. If anyone edits that file in SharePoint, that new version is automatically available on the website because it's just a link to the SharePoint file. So things that ought to change in our behavior because of the use of SharePoint is any kind of document that needs to go in the website is going to be shared publicly from SharePoint. And we shouldn't need to email attachments anymore. If there's a file that you need to share with somebody, then you're either going to send them the link to the folder where the file lives, like if maybe it's a committee, or the link to the specific file you're playing with, right? And this relieves the problem of you email a Word doc to a bunch of people, they each play with it a little bit. Who's got the one with the correct edits? Somebody has to compile all that. Now they just all live in one place. It is just one file. It's not multiple files spreading in the internet through email attachments, right? That is a practice we definitely need to make go away. It's gonna.
And I think the question about is the iDrive going away? As Gary said, the answer is no, but going forward, anything that you think that you might put into the iDrive, you should rethink and say, maybe we need a SharePoint group for this. And Gary will talk about how to make a group in SharePoint and how that happens. But if you're using a file for collaboration, don't use the iDrive. That's the simple.
Yeah.
Think about how you could use SharePoint instead, and you will likely find it to be simpler and more effective.
Other questions?
Feel like I have a lot, but I don't.
Yeah, the bottom line is you just gotta get in and start using it is what you need to do and decide if you want things synced or not. So for example, I'm part of the curriculum committee. So if I go to my home here, I have a curriculum committee right here. There are, again, this is the home page for the curriculum. This is documents. And in curriculum, we just have a general folder and then it's sorted by year. And in each year is each meeting date, and under each meeting date are whatever files we need for the curriculum committee. These are not synced to my desktop. But suppose there's someone on the curriculum committee that needs to edit these documents and they really do not like the Office 365 version of Word, for example, they like their desktop version. So the recommended way, if you really need for a group you're in, a SharePoint group, by the way, Teams and SharePoint are essentially the same thing. If there's a team made, that team comes with SharePoint, okay? And SharePoint has document storage, which is essentially OneDrive. But again, SharePoint accounts are group accounts, not individual accounts. Nice thing about that is if, like, let's suppose for the Tech Hub committee, that was part of my OneDrive and I was sharing all those documents with edit access to the rest of the Tech Hub. If I leave, what happens to all of those files that were attached to G Parker? IT has to grab them all and then give them to somebody else, which totally disrupts where they were. Any public links are now broken and it's a mess, right? So that's why we need these SharePoint accounts. So if somebody really needed to use, for example, for editing this on the curriculum committee, anything in here, like maybe the Associate of General Studies on their desktop version of Word, then they could use the sync option here. What that would then do in your file explorer, like I have the OneDrive Blue Mountain Community College, it would add a new section called OneDrive Curriculum Committee. And then those files would be accessible to my desktop versions of Word and Excel and PowerPoint or whatever else I use. Okay, so you would have two different sections in your account there.
But if you wanted to do that, you would then have to resync them back up to the.
No. Once you, the sync is a one-time thing. Yeah, so like here with my OneDrive, all these files appear to be on my desktop and they're online. Anything I edit online appears here. Anything I do here appears online. Same thing will happen with this right here. Once you do that sync process, then whatever computer you live on, those are always in coordination. In the background, Microsoft's always making sure whatever you edit on your desktop from that folder ends up in SharePoint. Anything that was edited or added in SharePoint will automatically end up in your in your OneDrive. Oops, where am I?
So we have another question.
Yeah.
Celeste asks, can you do everything in the Excel version and SharePoint that you can do in the desktop version, pivot tables, macros, et cetera?
I don't know the answer to that question. There are
No.
yeah, there are some things that you can't do. I know charts behave different. I guess pivot tables might behave different or might not be
No,
available.
but if you're talking about any behind the scenes, Visual Basic macros, those might be slightly different. But as Gary showed, it's very easy to sync any of those group folders. It's very easy to sync those back to your computer, so you can just use it on your desktop and it's totally transparent. Yeah.
Okay, other questions?
So, okay. So there wouldn't, you could do it that way or put your files into SharePoint, one or the other.
Yes. So
So
Now,
we have a group and we put files in our documents in our enrollment services group on SharePoint.
Yeah.
And that's how we share files. But if we wanted to, we could do it what you just said and share them that way as well.
yes,
When you say what do you mean by share them that way?
Well, so that people could work on them.
Each individual, go back to the SharePoint interface, each individual person. If they decided, like, if you want to work on your desktop, on your office desktop, if you hit that sync button,
Right,
it will create the folder
Yes.
on in your file explorer,
yes,
and you can just do the work out of there.
right. And then it will go back into the SharePoint.
It'll
So
automatically
that
be
someone else can then access it and work on it as well.
exactly.
yes. And something we recommend if you're going to use the sync tool is to, what's that feature called again? Autosave. Turn
Yeah.
on autosave so that it's constantly updating as you work.
So we also had another question that I know we had talked about,
Yeah.
going over. How do you know if your files are synced?
Okay, so again, once you do the sync, that's it, they're synced.
If they're on if you go to your file explorer and you see that folder,
Yeah,
they're synced.
yeah, so the only, I gotta be clear on this, the only things that get synced are things that live in the OneDrive Blue Mountain Community College, or if I added the OneDrive Curriculum Committee. Only those things get synced. Things do not sync from documents, do not.
The other thing is if you are, if you have synced with a particular computer and you access the OneDrive folder on that computer, it will show icons that indicate if something is stored just in the cloud right now, or if it's stored on that computer. We had a little chart of that.
Yeah, let's see, I can turn that on. Where's my other details?
But you also don't have to sync it to a particular computer because.
Yeah, you can have it set to show you the status of files.
Yeah.
But it usually happens very quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it happens almost instantly.
I
the
mean,
only
obviously-
time it wouldn't is if you don't have, if you specifically turn the OneDrive auto sync off,
Right,
which I've done personally
on purpose.
on purpose,
Yeah.
but you would have to do it on purpose.
Yeah, you'd have to go out of your way to turn off the sync. So any file that you edit on your computer that came from the OneDrive folder here is automatically synced online.
You would want to be careful in any group. I mean, this is true of any group editing project. Like the situation you were talking about, if you had two people who had synced the SharePoint folder to each of their desktops.
Right.
They both open the same file at the same time and start working on it. Weird things can happen.
Right.
Although you should be able to see that they're in there, because even on the desktop app, it can still pop up with a little cursor
Yeah.
that shows where they are.
Exactly, yeah, it's like
what
Google,
they're
it's
doing.
like Google Docs, yeah.
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 But so you might be able to see what they're doing, what you're doing, but you'd be stepping on each other's toes. So.
Yeah,
You know,
so
like with anything, you want to communicate with the person and say, hey, let's not both work on this at the same time, because you'll see that they're in there.
yeah, it'll put a little, you'll see a prompt with their initials doing stuff
I
live.
didn't know that it did the same. I didn't know, because that sounds a lot like when you're working in the same file in SharePoint, not
Yeah.
just on your own.
Yeah, yeah, and you will see that in the web version. I don't think you'll see that in the desktop version. That if someone's,
Actually,
Yeah, you
you
can see
think
it.
in the desktop it shows too?
I've done it before.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, cool.
Um,
Learn something new.
They're starting to overlap more and more is what they're doing.
Yeah.
yeah.
well, I mean, we could try to do the demo of that.
All right, so let's see. I want to show, let's see. Okay, so again, OneDrive can be synced, doesn't have to. It's up to you. Main reason you want to sync to a computer is if you like to use the desktop versions of Word and Excel and so on. Same thing with SharePoint. SharePoint documents can be synced. There's a sync option for them if you have access to SharePoint. Now, another reason you might want to sync with SharePoint, and you don't have to, as far as uploading files go, I can upload files to SharePoint a couple of different ways. I can just drag and drop stuff from the computer I'm on, my File Explorer, into a folder in SharePoint. Or I could do that with the sync tool and then just in the File Explorer, drag files wherever I need to. So for any department that's going to be moving their files into SharePoint, the recommendation is once you have a SharePoint account for your department, selectively put the most important stuff in SharePoint Online. Don't just dump everything that department has accumulated over the last 30 years. Okay, you can, there's nothing to stop you from doing that, but IT and I don't recommend doing that. So like with the curriculum committee, we didn't dump everything from the iDrive into the curriculum committee folder. We just put 2002 stuff in there when we started, and now new 2003 stuff is only in SharePoint. It's not in the iDrive anymore. Our next mission is to sit down and say, okay, what from the old iDrive do we need to migrate into this new SharePoint for the curriculum committee?
Think
And
of it
Office
like
of Instruction.
house.
Yeah, it's like moving to a new house. This is an opportunity to get rid of some shit. Okay, so get rid of some stuff if you can. All right, let's see, is there a new question there?
It was, if someone goes to the same file in the online version and you're using the desktop version, does it still give a warning that someone else is in the app?
Do you want to test this
Let's just
now?
try it. Okay, so
Okay.
go to the website team
Okay, let's
and,
see.
and just.
We're gonna try.
sync and
Website.
Since you've got OneDrive installed on this computer.
Oh, do it locally?
Yeah, you sync. it.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to sync it. Okay, let me sync it. Okay, we're gonna try a live experiment here. Wish me luck. All right, so I'm in the documents for the website team. I am gonna sync these. Open. Okay, it's working on it. So then it's gonna open up the OneDrive app and try and make that connection to my File Explorer. And I think it just happened. I think it's
Okay, so
that
I'm-
easy. So if I go here,
And there's those little icons.
yeah, so I now have this new icon here, Blue Mountain Community College website team. Okay, which document?
Academics pages.
All right, I'm gonna open this up in the desktop Word.
And I'm in the online.
Greg's in the
So
online
maybe it's
version.
text, I don't know.
Upload blocked. Oh, I'm not signed in properly here. Okay,
The sign in is just the same as everything else.
okay. And I do not see Greg in here. Oh, other people are editing this document. Cool, there's my warning up here.
Okay, let it.
And you're on
Do
the
you want to
web.
automatically
web
share
version, so-
changes?
Click
Yes.
And see if my changes show up.
Oh, it shows two people. There you go.
Where are
It's
you
not
looking?
showing- It's not showing.
Oh, here's two here.
I just saw Gary show up in mine. It's not showing my live changes unless you,
Is there a way to refresh?
oh, I need to go auto save, hold on. No, it should be auto save.
Yeah, it's showing us both
So you
working
can
on this
see
in
that
real
we're both In
time.
there, but.
Yeah, so it warns that we're in there, but I can't see what Greg's doing right now.
I know that I have from the desktop app seen other people in there. I don't know if they were also using the desktop app or something weird like that. And it could have to do with the version that you have installed because not all of us have the most up-to-date versions of each of
Yeah, I'm not
the.
sure how.
Something
There's-
showed up.
There's my
Oh.
text.
There's Greg's stuff starting to appear here. So there's a little bit of lag
Little
there.
lag.
So you
Okay.
could potentially run into trouble if you're trying to do something. at the
Is
same
there,
time.
is there an actual refresh button?
I don't see a refresh. This is the share here. It says it's automatically always sharing changes. There's undo.
What's the grayed out one there?
You type a whole sentence or just one word?
That's a repeat because I haven't done anything.
there-
Oh, it's slowly appearing. So there's a little bit of a, I mean, it's not instantly updating everything that's happening with the desktop version, but every few seconds it is. Oh, and here I now have a little cursor. If I point to it, I bet it's going to say Greg Schulberg.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a little time lag with that.
The
But
web app
it
I
did
think is-
warn me right away, hey, someone else is editing this. And then once I hit the share button where that came
Oh,
up,
wow, now it's happening right now.
I can see Greg Schulberg. Okay, now it's happening fast. Okay, so.
So it just had to get you
Yeah,
kind of synced up
and
already.
the hamsters had to get the wheel going.
Yeah, okay, so I got it going.
Cool.
All right, so we're almost at the end of time, so a couple things. If you need help with your OneDrive for your account and deciding what to do, get in touch with Greg, Ashley, or I. If you're part of a department or committee that needs help moving to SharePoint, get in touch with one of us. We'll meet with you and help you do that. The last thing I want to do is just show how sharing works, which is actually pretty straightforward.
And then you can talk about how to make a SharePoint group.
Yeah, let's do the SharePoint group first. If you need to make a SharePoint group, then you should contact IT about making that group. The group is going to have a name. Names can only exist once. So for example, the Office of Instruction had an email address that shared called instruction. So we couldn't make a SharePoint called instruction because that email address was made like a regular account. There's different ways to create accounts in Microsoft. If a regular account is made with a name, that cannot also be a SharePoint name. So IT will have to check to see if the name your group or department wants exists already. If it does, they'll have to figure out how it exists and if they can just get rid of the current version, or you have to come up with a new name for that
And there
department.
may already be a group.
And there may already be a group.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of groups are already in there that people made before. It used to be anybody could make a SharePoint group, but IT locked that down because it was getting problematic because people were forgetting they had names and then making new duplicate kind of names like Math Department 1 and Math Department 2 and so on, because they couldn't get access to the other one. So IT is going to manage that. When you first get a SharePoint account for your department or group, it is not publicly accessible. It's only accessible to individuals in the institution. Okay, with bluecc.edu email accounts. If you need any part of that SharePoint document section available to the public, then you have to send IT another request saying we need this account to be publicly accessible. And I'll show that next.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Since we can't really do any of this on our own here.
Well, what you can do on your own is anything in your documents you can put into the iDrive. Once, if you're part of a group or department that needs a SharePoint, once they make that SharePoint account, it's entirely up to you to use it.
Yeah, you can, the only thing you have to contact IT for is to create the group to begin with.
Or to make it public, but beyond that, you can add files, you can move files around.
We're gonna add all of that. So like, if you had,
Well, I understand, I'm just. Contact IT, they'll send you out,
Yeah,
and we're gonna fast forward to add the IT sends you out.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's essentially just like asking IT for a group.
Mhm.
yeah. So the academics group, this is a public group because some things in academic need to be shared publicly. So for example, if I go to catalogs here and I select share, there's basically 3 authorization levels for sharing. I'm going to come down here to the copy link. There's anyone. And again, if a SharePoint group was made initially and you didn't ask it to be public, this anyone will be grayed out. And if you try to click on it, a sign will pop up that says your administrator will have to make this accessible. You cannot. So I asked IT to make this accessible. So then at each folder level, we have to decide, is this folder accessible to the public or not? One catch on that is when it's first made public, it is totally public. And I got to double check with IT about that, because notice this one says share with anyone does not require sign-in, and it says can edit. I don't want everyone to be able to edit this, so I'm going to change that to view here. What's normally going to happen with these is the anyone's not going to be on initially, but initially people at Blue Mountain will be able to access. And typically that's going to be with a view setting for everyone with a Blue CC address. Now that's on the condition they know how to get to it. How would they get to it? We would have to publish the link or share individually with a person, which brings us to the third level where you can individually select people by name to have view or edit access to these files. And you, whoever the owner is, or whoever is an editing member of this, has control over those sharings.
Yeah, and you can get really granular with it too. You can share just specific files, you can share whole folders, whatever.
Yeah, so I want all of these catalogs to be publicly available on the internet. So then I'm going to go back to the anyone can view. I'm going to choose apply here. And then that's the link I'm going to grab and stick on the website in the catalog section so people can see all of our old catalogs if they want to. Or I could link them one at a time. Now, in situations like this, we just want all the catalogs easily available publicly. With, for example, minutes of meetings for like the board, the curriculum committee, those are supposed to be publicly accessible. Workflow wise, it doesn't make sense to publish those one at a time. What makes sense is to just publish the folder that contains all of the minutes and agendas. And then anytime you put something new in there, it's instantly publicly available. Okay, so Shannon Franklin in the president's office has switched to this workflow with committees. So now managing this public accessibility is way easier for her, where she was putting up a new link for every meeting for both minutes and agendas. They now just live in one folder and she doesn't have to mess with the website anymore. She just puts stuff in the folder and it's automatically publicly available.
And anyone who uses that, I mean, we all have seen this, the meeting minutes and agenda emailed to the entire group, every meeting. With SharePoint, you don't have to do that. The link, as Gary said, instead of emailing attachments, email the link.
Yeah, so let's suppose maybe these are minutes from a meeting instead of catalogs. If there's people that aren't from the college on this committee, this is what they would see when I send out the public link to it. They would get that folder with everything in it.
And you could even say, here's a link, like if you had a particular meeting that has its own folder or even its own file, you can send just a link to that file.
Yeah, so here I linked
from today's meeting, and then again, no attachment, it's just a link that people can open and access.
Yeah, same idea for an individual file. I go to the file if I'm working in it, or I can just come here, hit the share button. And again, I'll get those things. Anyone can edit, not what I want. Double check, I want it to be view, apply, copy, and then I just give that link out. And now whoever gets the link has access to it. If we put the link on the website, then everybody has access to it from the website. All right, so in summary, from the frequently asked questions page, which is on the faculty and staff page, frequently asked questions, there are 3 new questions. One is OneDrive. I have links here, like I access it from my email. Here's a link to OneDrive directly. That multi-dot button is another way to get to OneDrive. There's a video here on how to use the sync tool for the first time. Super straightforward. Again, the syncing is, notice the direction of the arrow. The files essentially live in OneDrive, not on your computer, but they appear to be on your computer. Notice there is no connection from the iDrive, which is my documents, and the F drive.
F drive.
Do I have those labels backwards?
Yeah.
I and F, sorry, I can't keep those straight. There is no connection directly from iDrive or F drive to SharePoint or OneDrive. Doesn't exist. How do I use SharePoint? I did a quick example of the sync with SharePoint a moment ago. There's a video for it here, or a help page with a video there from Microsoft. And then the sharing files is, again, pretty straightforward. And there's a tutorial page here about that. And that tutorial page, again, explains the levels of sharing, whether it's everyone, your organization, or individual people, and whether they can view or edit a file. Other things you have control over. If you need help setting any of these up or using these tools, let Greg Schulberg, Ashley Emmons, or Gary Parker know, and we'll meet with you to help it get going. Thanks for playing. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Gary, do you know, non-Microsoft